Hello, this is Pastor Matthew Woods from Grace Lutheran Church in New Albany, Indiana, and this is the weekly devotion for March 17, 2025. Today's title, Avoid Being Scammed. Well, you may have heard by now that one of our members was scammed this last couple weeks ago, actually. Um, she apparently clicked on something that she shouldn't have, and the next thing she knew, someone else had control of her Facebook page, found her phone number on the information page, and proceeded to change the passwords on her Facebook and thus took control not only of her Facebook, but also of her phone number. Nice. After taking control of the Facebook account, the thief pretended to be our friend from church. And lo and behold, he stole her identity and then tried to steal from the rest of us, her friends. The thief immediately, of course, put out a plea for money in our friend's name. The thief played on the compassion of all of us, the good people at church, that we would respond to our friend, except that he didn't know that our friend would never ask for such a thing, but that didn't matter. It took some time to realize it by our friend, um, and but by the time we found out, the damage was done. A friend had lost her Facebook account and her phone number. Everything was a mess. And who would have thought that changing your phone number or your Facebook page would be so problematic? But it was. Our phone number can be turned into access for many accounts. What are the last four digits of your phone number? How many have asked that? Well, if they get those, guess what? They can put a wrench onto everything else in doctors and appointments and people you have connections to. All of those things are affected. All the accounts that you might have connected to that number are going to need to be updated and changed. And that would really be bad, especially if you've had a phone number like mine for going on 30 years almost. Oh, that would be rough. Anyway, um, if that isn't enough, last week our pastors conference we got together for our monthly meeting, and ironically enough, one of our own pastors in the circuit had the same thing happen to them. Somehow a thief got access to their online church directory, which we don't have, by the way. We don't put ours online for this very reason. Found the pastor's number, and then proceeded to pose as the pastor, asking for money, reaching out to the rest of the numbers on the directory that pastor needs some help. Well, he does. He needs help getting rid of this guy. But he had to get a new number, had to create all kinds of new accounts. Everything was affected. He also explained much of the pain, how much of a pain it was to update everything and contact and continue to remember who else do I need to contact to update my phone number and my information. But it's no fun. People posing as us in order to steal from our friends and our neighbors, that's no good. But this is not new. We've seen it before, folks. We have read about this in Joshua chapter 9. When the Israelites were conquering the land of Canaan, the Gibeonites saw the writing on the wall, literally when the walls fell at Jericho. So they decided to trick Israel into believing that they were someone else so that they would be spared. Verse 4 and following says they resorted to a ruse. And it explains that they loaded their donkeys with worn out clothes and worn out and patched wineskins and put moldy bread in the old bags, and everything was sort of worn out looking, as if they'd been on the road for months, a long time, somewhere from out of town, if you will. Well, if Israel had found out that they were local Canaanites before uh, they they um, they fooled them, they would have resorted, or I guess they would have fallen like the rest of the Canaanites. But they fooled them because verse 14 tells us that Israel, they sampled the provisions, they looked at the worn out clothes, the worn out wineskins, the worn out animals, and so on. It all looked up and up. However, the other half of verse 14 says, but they did not inquire of the Lord. They did not check to see if something's safe. We'll get to that in a minute, by the way, in our terms. But so they formed a treaty with these Gibeonites who were pretending to be someone else, and they got what they wanted from the Israelites by deception. I was checking, and again, the Israelites, if you will, clicked on something they shouldn't have. Instead of checking more carefully before they clicked on the Gibeonite link, if you will, they made a treaty. They bought into it. 3 days later, the truth is discovered, and the people grumble against the leaders, and the leaders effectively say, it's too late, we blew it. Already made a treaty with them, already it's done, we'll have to honor it. And from that day on, the Gibeonites, we're told, became woodcutters and workers and servants of Israel. Well, but they did not inquire of the Lord, right? That's the key to it. This is the key to the entire chapter. This is a good lesson for us. Watch out for the Gibeonites. Thankfully, the Gibeonites were friendly enough, but we're dealing with other kinds of humanity, those that steal our identities. A quick and basic step cannot be skipped. The Israelites let their guard down long enough to be duped into believing that they were from outside of town, and the damage was done. Now, I am sure the Israelites' leaders felt, well, especially Joshua, felt very ashamed and foolish to have been taken, allow themselves to be deceived like that. It's so embarrassing and so upsetting, right? When we end up in this situation. And like an unlike identity theft, the consequences were irreversible. The only thing the Israelites could do was to effectively start a new account, this time with the Gibeonites, right? They had to honor their oath, albeit with Gibeonites, but now with the Gibeonites as servants and woodcutters. Okay, the lesson for today is to check, to inquire. Did you really send this to us? Is this real? If it's from someone like myself or someone we know, the best thing we can do is ask them directly before we click on the link. Test the spirits, the scriptures tell us, on any of the links of any kind, especially and including even church stuff, anyone from church, because they're always going to use the people that we trust. They're always going to use the relationships that we have in order to steal. If you get an email with a link, never click the link. That's the bottom line. Simply erase it and then notify the fellow friend directly with a phone call that a link was sent in their name, that there was a message sent in their name to try and get some money. And then try to put a stop to it by doing that. No, if they don't get anybody, if they don't succeed, the whole thing will go away. Know this though, if a message is coming from your pastors or the staff or from someone claiming to be from Grace, sadly, you still need to be suspicious. Your pastors will not ask you for money in that way or for help in that way. We will always ask in person. We will always make some kind of announcement if there is a need to be had. If there's a need, we'll announce that stuff in person, okay? Or we'll talk to you personally, but it'll never be by a link. People don't do it that way. The simple lesson is to inquire. Inquire of the Lord, inquire of your friends, ask, double check, and please be careful. In doing so, we will help defend one another from any malicious attempt to misuse our compassion and our love for one another. Let's not let them do that. I'm Pastor Woods. Thanks again for joining me today. I hope this is helpful, a nice reminder. But don't be afraid to call us. Don't be afraid to ask if you have questions about such things. In the meantime, may the Lord bless your week, and may the Lord give you peace. I look forward to seeing you next week, and until then, God bless. Bye-bye.